The British were a little upset after the American Revolution and the creation of the United States, and many of them never really recovered from the loss. Why then did the British never try to reclaim any or all of the United States throughout the following century? Why just accept its permanent disappearance? Therefore, Britain wasn't particularly eager to make any changes in the first years following American freedom. It's true that the new government across the pond wasn't particularly well functioning. There was a lot of money to be made without the expense of operating the place, which was a bonus. However, because its new leaders couldn't agree on how the new nation would function, most of the old regulations remained in place until new ones could be drafted. The U.S. would eventually establish a constitution that would restrict international trade. However, this was insufficient justification for going to war, and Britain wasn't really concerned about America's continued independence. The general consensus in Parliament, you see, was that the new American Republic was bound to fail since monarchy was the most natural form of government. In fact, many American revolutionaries considered themselves to be English, or nearly so, during and soon after the Revolution. In London, it was also thought that they would soon realize their mistakes and take steps to restore monarchy. They would unavoidably have to look to Britain because there were no American nobles, and King George would be the ideal candidate. And from there, the gradual but inevitable process of reincorporating America into the empire would begin. Although this certainly never occurred, it wasn't an irrational idea considering Britain's own 17th century experiment with republicanism. France experienced its own revolution soon after the Constitution was ratified, and it remained at war with Britain until 1815. Because of their more urgent problems, the British were able to impress sailors flying the American flag. This resulted in the War of 1812, which was the final opportunity for Britain to really recapture a portion of the United States. Did it try then? Yes, indeed. The Prime Minister at the time, Lord Liverpool, aimed to increase Britain's territories at the expense of the US, but he had no intention of capturing the entire United States. You see, the British sought to acquire Maine and establish the colony of New Ireland here because the line between British America and the US wasn't actually clearly established. Much of the region had been occupied by the British during the war, and it was assumed that the Americans would just cede it as long as the rest of the war went well. However, Britain never requested a single inch of territory throughout the peace talks. Why not then? The first was that London's main aim was to reorganize the European map so that future wars wouldn't become Britain's burden. The main fear was that war would break out again because France would not accept the changes. As a result, the Americans accepted Britain's promise to return to everything as it was before the war. In the following decades and century, the British were primarily concerned with growing in India and then Africa, as well as the impending conflict with Russia in Central Asia. Because of this, North America became less important, and by the middle of the 19th century, the US was too powerful for the British to ever risk going to war without losing Canada. As a result, they took no action. The idea of reincorporating even a small portion of American land was thus permanently dashed. With a special thanks to my viewers, I hope you enjoyed this episode. For more stuff, please subscribe.